It was a cold Sunday morning when Emily walked into the old stone church, her little boy's hand clasped tightly in hers. The soft chime of the bells echoed through the village, and for a brief moment, she felt peace, a feeling she hadn't known in years. The white veil draped over her hair fluttered in the wind, and her heart raced, not with excitement, but fear. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, her wedding day, but deep inside, she knew something wasn't right. As she stepped inside, the whispers began. Rows of familiar faces turned toward her, their smiles fading into judgmental stares. The murmurs grew louder. That's her, the woman with a child, she shouldn't be here. Emily felt the air tighten around her, the weight of shame pressing against her chest. Still, she stood tall. She wasn't just a bride, she was a mother, a survivor, a woman who had fought too hard to bow down now. The ceremony began. The priest stood before the altar, flipping through his book of vows, and beside him stood Thomas, the man she had loved for 3 years. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. Emily's heart trembled as she noticed the slight distance in his eyes, the hesitation in his smile. But she tried to ignore it. She believed love could conquer judgment. She believed that their story, two broken souls trying to build a home, was strong enough to silence the world. Yet, just as the vows were about to begin, the priest's voice stopped. He closed his book and frowned. "Before we proceed," he said, "the church council has brought a matter to my attention." Emily froze. The room fell silent. "It has come to our notice," he continued, "that the bride standing before us has a child out of wedlock." The congregation gasped. Emily's fingers went cold. She turned toward Thomas, her lips trembling. "What is he talking about?" she whispered. But Thomas said nothing. The priest looked at her with pity. "This union cannot be blessed in the house of God," he declared. "The sanctity of this place forbids it." The words struck like lightning. The church erupted with whispers, judgment, and cruel laughter. Emily dropped her bouquet, her knees weak. "Please," she begged, "this isn't fair. I came here to be forgiven, to start again, but no one listened." Thomas turned his back and walked away. Outside the church, rain began to pour. Emily knelt on the steps, clutching her son close, tears blending with the rain. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, her voice cracking, "Mommy's okay." But she wasn't. Her dress, once white as hope, was now drenched in mud. The crowd dispersed, leaving her alone under the gray sky. Every dream she had built crumbled in a single moment. She looked at the cross on the church door and whispered, "God, if you're listening, please don't let this be the end." And then, as if heaven itself heard her, a car stopped nearby, a sleek black limousine that didn't belong in their poor little town. The door opened, and a tall man in a gray coat stepped out. His face was calm, his eyes deep with kindness. He looked at Emily, not with pity, but with recognition. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Emily couldn't speak. The man offered his hand. "Come," he said, "you shouldn't be here." She hesitated, clutching her son's small hand, then slowly rose to her feet. He took them to a nearby cafe, warm, quiet, with the smell of fresh bread and coffee. The man ordered food, though Emily couldn't eat. "You don't know me," he began, "but I was at the church. What they did to you, it was cruel." His name was Richard Langford, a businessman who had grown up in that same town but left years ago after losing his parents to poverty. "People like them," he said, "they forget what faith truly means. Faith isn't about perfection, it's about compassion." Emily stared at him, unsure why a man like him would care. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Because once, I was like your son, judged for where I came from, not for who I was. And someone helped me. Now it's my turn." His voice carried the warmth of truth, and for the first time that day, Emily's heart began to thaw. Days turned into weeks. Richard helped Emily find a place to live. He gave her a job at one of his companies, not out of charity, but because he saw her determination. Emily worked tirelessly, managing accounts, caring for her son, slowly rebuilding the pieces of her life. Richard would visit often, checking in, bringing small gifts for her boy. But beyond kindness, there was something deeper growing between them, respect, admiration, and a quiet affection that neither dared to name. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily sat by her window, watching her son sleep. She thought of the church, the humiliation, the faces that had turned away. Yet she no longer felt broken. She had found strength not in the approval of others, but in her own courage. Richard's words echoed in her heart, "You don't need anyone's permission to be worthy of love." Months later, Emily returned to that same church, not as a bride seeking validation, but as a woman who had found grace within herself. The priest froze as she walked down the aisle. The congregation whispered again, but this time, Emily's head was high. Beside her stood Richard, his hand firmly in hers. They weren't there to ask for approval. They were there to give thanks, not for what had been taken from them, but for what they had found, faith reborn in kindness, love stronger than shame. As they stood at the altar, Richard turned to her and whispered, "You were never unworthy." They just couldn't see it. Tears filled her eyes. "And you," she whispered back, "you were the miracle I didn't ask for, but desperately needed." The priest, humbled by their courage, cleared his throat. "Perhaps," he said softly, "we all have something to learn today." The room fell silent as he continued, "For true faith begins with forgiveness." And for the first time in years, Emily smiled. Her son, sitting in the front row, clapped his little hands, pure, innocent, and proud. The bells rang once more, not in judgment, but in joy. Outside, the rain had stopped, replaced by a golden sunset. The same town that once shamed her now watched in silence, realizing that redemption had walked right past their prejudice. Emily and Richard stepped out of the church together, hand in hand, not just as a couple, but as symbols of what love and faith truly meant. As they drove away, Emily looked out the window and whispered a silent promise to herself, to never let fear define her again. Life had broken her once, but she had risen stronger, not because someone saved her, but because someone believed in her when no one else did. And that belief had changed everything. She turned to her son in the back seat and smiled. "You see, sweetheart," she said softly, "angels don't always have wings. Sometimes, they drive limousines." And as the car disappeared down the golden road, a single message echoed for everyone watching, listening, or feeling broken: never give up, no matter how dark your story seems. Because the next chapter might just be the miracle you've been waiting for. If this story touched your heart, remember, there's always light after the darkest night. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of hope, faith, and second chances. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories to the world.